Hello guys, we're the Dwarven Tavern and we're back for another
Dwarven Tavern talk.
tech talk, whatever. I'm Josh.
I am Lyric.
And right now we're going to be going over story-based campaigns compared to the more hack and slash, battle-driven dungeon crawl.
The brutal type game, the game that everybody just wants to roll the dice, do the damage, and move on to the next encounter. Which was kind of the original concept of Dungeons and Dragons, but I feel like the more it's expanded, the more storyline can be added to it.
Oh, well, you'll see, I think the majority of people doing more dungeon-based crawls, especially in the early parts of gaming, or a campaign, or with newer gamers. It's very simple and very easy for an introduction for those type of people.
Yeah. Like, it's very, for new gamers, the people that are basing their ideology of what gaming is off of, like, video games, they're experiencing it as just a way to get levels and a way to experience points. get experience points faster so that their character, I guess, becomes bigger and stronger and doesn't actually have any personality to them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tackle the DM's perspective, or the GM's perspective, whatever game you play, and he's going to be tackling the player character's point of view and why story-based campaigns are important.
Well, I think mostly what we're going to be going over today is homebrew stories, not like dungeon modules or anything that you'll see from the 3.5 editions or the Pathfinders, where they'll set up the story, set up the background, and do pretty much all the hard work for you as a DM, and then your only job is to run them through it. We're going to pretty much be going over everything from you creating something from the ground up. So,
hopping right into it, the importance of a story-based campaign is that your character can become someone important to you. They can become more than just their weapon, more than just their magic. And this is a character that you can tell stories about, their personal experiences, much more easily than you would be able to when it comes to a character that uses their sword to do the talking. Those characters do have personality and they do have storylines, but I feel like having a story-based campaign can add a whole other dimension, more depth to the characters themselves and the story that they're in. So, the importance of having a story-based campaign is that your characters may want to go a little more in depth with their personalities, and battlefields can kind of allude to what their characters are like, but at the same time it doesn't really give an example of their personality in different situations that aren't battle related. For example, you might be this bloodthirsty half ogre on the field hack and slash, but you're desperately in love with elves, and you have to do your best whenever you're around them to try to be as charming as a half ogre can be, and you can't really do that if you're fighting orcs on the battlefield. That's not it's a dimension of your character that you're not expanding.
You're not doing anything.
Right, and it's very important, in my personal opinion, to have as much depth to the character as you possibly can, even if they've got a certain drive, even if they have like a singular notion that keeps them going, like revenge, or finding out who their father is, or they want to become the most powerful wizard. Well, when they run into, like, a powerful wizard who can give them everything that they want, they have to sit down and have a cup of tea. Well, who the hell are they? And what do they discuss with this wizard when they have the tea? It's a whole different aspect of that character that is kind of forgotten about, and it's kind of not even touched on when it's a dungeon crawl or a battle-driven game. So the how-to, because that's pretty much all of the importance of having it, is that it's just another dimension to your game. The how-to is that you simply write out your, like, the points of the characters that, like, as a player, you write out the points of your character that you want to explore, and then as the DM, You can add more quests in the game. You can add more conflict in the game, like political conflict or royal conflict. Like if your characters are going into castles or dungeons or the like, then you could have like they fall in love with the princess, and then they have to be suave and make a wish with the genie and whatever. So there are tons of different ways that you can add story to the game, and like the possibilities are endless. One of my favorite ways to add story to the game is to create a history conflict with the backstory of the characters that are in your game. It's like the people that they trust don't turn out to be who they said they were, or your father isn't who he says he is, or you're on a mission to find this certain person. Well, he turns out to be the good guy and you're fighting the wrong person the whole time. Like, it's like, some of them are very cliche and some of them are very stereotypical with the points, but at the same time, every person can have the same cliche points, and how they take it makes the story unique. So, by having these cliche storylines, you can make a character use their skills more, their feats more, and make them think of ways that they can get out of certain situations that avoid conflict altogether. Like, one of the biggest points that you can do to make sure to avoid conflict is flat out tell them, avoid conflict. You don't fight this person. He is part of the Royal 10, and he has to remain alive in order for you to get this favor from another one of the Royal 10.
Right.
And you have to be a bodyguard for this person, and then you find out all of his secrets. And that could be a very cool storyline all on its own. So you can have fun with it, have an imagination, and take it pretty much any way that you want to. As the player, it's pretty much up to the player to decide where the storyline goes.
Well, it's going to depend on the reactions that they have to said situation. It's hard for a player. It could be hard for a player to break that role of just,
the hack and slash.
Yeah, or they're not used to diplomatic things. They're not used to talking their way through things, or stuff like that. And really what it runs down into is it's a really nice change of pace for compared to a dungeon crawl. Now, it's a good change of pace, and but you really have to have both to have a really good campaign, in my opinion. You can't have it be all story for 10 sessions and that's boring at that point.
Right.
You have to have story plus action, and I guess that's kind of the key to it.
Mm-hmm. You have to find the balance of both action-packed adventure and story-based adventure.
And for the character, it adds a lot. Like you said, it's a lot of importance on their role-playing, finding out more about who their characters are, how they react to different stuff, why that they react to different things in certain ways, justifications for their actions. That could be one thing that a player may not has ever been faced with. Like, well, you killed this guy. Well, why'd you do it? Like, what was your reasonings? What were your backgrounds for it? And it's just like, I just wanted to kill him.
Right.
It's like, well, that's the reason, but it's not a good reason.
Yeah. It adds more character to that character.
Yeah, it's because you're playing a character just to basically play a character. So with those things, that's, as I said, that's what really creates a well-rounded character. A character that has seen a lot of different things, done a lot of different things, and of course this is all dependent on how you react to situations. Make sure it's how your character would react and not how the player wants to react.
Very important point.
Yes, and it's a lot of dependent on the DM too. Is the DM used to running a campaign with story and background and NPCs and a lot of deeper role playing than say a dungeon crawl?
Well, I think tackling a story-based campaign, even if you both are new to it, if you're the DM and you're new to it and the PC the player is used to it or not used to it. I think that's even more reason to do it, is so that you're branching out and experiencing it as the player and the dungeon master, not just what's in game. By having that experiencing it, having that experience and doing it yourself, you're able to have a wider range of storytelling that can add another feature to your style of gaming and can draw more people to come in and game more.
And it makes it actually kind of easier on the DM, especially if you have multiple players who are role-playing amongst themselves. You know, that's been plenty of times that I've been DMing and me just thinking of something or what to do next, if I hadn't planned that far or they have done something that I didn't think about, to just kind of throw some story just out there and let the players talk among themselves, bicker among themselves, role play among themselves, and while you just kind of sit back and
do your own thing.
Yeah, and that's something that we go through. We happen to do a lot.
Yeah, like one of Tavernier Ian's campaign he was literally just sitting like this, very much so, just watching him, me, and Tavernier Jeff all bicker amongst ourselves because our characters had that other dimension to them where they were all concerned about their own individual storylines. And we were all trying to decide what to do next, and Dad's character was a very leader-type character. His character was a very not leader-type, he was a very solo-type character, and I was just wanting everybody to get along. And having that dimension was just like an hour of us trying to decide where to go next, while the Dungeon Master, Ian, was just sitting there like, yeah, this is great, you guys are all getting experience points for this. Which is another reason why to do it, is the more story you have to your campaign, the more role-playing you have to your game, and the more role-playing you can get experience points for. And I find that a bonus. You should. You should. If your DM is nice, they will give you experience points for role-playing, because that is a feat all on its own, is being able to role-play correctly. And that actually, having a story-based campaign can expand your experience and your talents with role-playing as a human being. Like, you can, or not role-playing as a human being, but the player being able to role-play it can be an experience that story-based campaigns can give you, where conflict-based campaigns can, but not to the depth that you may want or need. So, I highly recommend it, doing story-based campaigns. We have our fair share of both, and the point you made earlier, I definitely do think it's so important to not just weigh heavily on one or the other, but to have a good mixture of the two. Because I tend to gravitate towards story campaigns because I'm an author all on my own, and I sometimes forget the conflict, I guess I should say the battle conflict. There's plenty of conflict in my games. But I tend to forget the battle conflict, and that does make my campaigns boring sometimes. So having battles is important because it keeps the interest up. And it's a great way to experience or level up your characters and get them experience points. But if you want to add the personality side to your character, then story is where you can find that.
Yep. I couldn't say it better myself.
So that pretty much sums it up. If you have any comments or questions or concerns, or even examples of your own story-based versus battle-heavy campaigns, please comment below. We're always happy to hear about your own experiences. And that about wraps it up.
I think so.
Now remember, D&D, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, 13th Age, all of those good role-playing games, they're called role-play for a reason, because it's not just about the hack and slash of what video games may offer. So get into the story, get into writing it, living it, doing it, so that you can have stories to tell your grandchildren. And I look forward to hearing from you.
On that note, I think we can wrap it up. So this is Josh.
I am Lyric.
And on behalf of the entire cast and crew of the Dwarven Tavern, we wish for you to want nothing but adventure. And at first I feared it.
Then I charged.
thank you, and we'll see you next time.